We now return to Let's Play Heart of the Forest. Let's start the next chapter. The day after. The next morning was full of sunshine and birdsong. I could smell the heat of the afternoon building, those long honey-like hours in late June when the earth isn't tired of its own warmth yet, but it was crisp and pleasant now. I got up. I sat on my bed for a moment, letting my feet dangle from it. I wasn't sure how I felt. The weight of the previous day had coiled up somewhere in my chest, and I felt like a tiny merry-go-round gaining speed. And there was the dream. Then I remembered the dream, the clearing, the animals in the night sky, waiting for me. I took a shower, ate something without really paying attention, and went out. Anya joined you. Summer morning. We were halfway through the forest when I realized we were walking toward the logging site. Protests, activists, answers? Against the machines. I was running all the options over and over in my head, and I didn't really care where I was going. When I looked up, the sun was shining, the village was far behind me, and I was at the logging site. Anya looked around. So what's the plan? Well, I really gotta figure out the forest more than anything. That is my life goal here, so... And we came here specifically for what's-his-face, so I need to find somebody. There was someone I had to find and press for answers. I need to talk to Cornell, the guy from the Place of Power. He seemed to know a lot about the forest's hidden secrets. I looked around. On my right was the ancient forest. On my left was the freshly torn clearing. Ahead of me, ruining the view, were huge logging machines and a group of people arguing in their shadow. I thought the machines were sucking the life out of the air, like they were a wound, not just pieces of equipment. Let's look at the people. There were people here, too. The loggers were sitting idly on the tree trunks, sharing cigarettes. The police that stood between them and a colorful group of protesters were visibly uneasy and twitchy. I saw some reporters who were clearly bored because no one was doing anything interesting. The harvesters loomed over the clearing, reeking. I saw a familiar face among the protesters. Cornell was arguing with a woman with gray dreadlocks. The protesters were clearly conflicted. They need my advice. No. Why would I want to solve this? Let's just find out what's going on here. Curious about the reason for it all, I approached the protesters. One of the police officers, young and nervous, said something I didn't fully understand. I'll let Anya handle him. Anya flashed her best smile and flooded him with Norwegian. He smiled back. Oh, he said, you're one of them. That's rude to say that of Norwegians. And let us go. Then I noticed someone joined us. Do they speak Norwegian in Poland? Oh, he said, oh, sorry. And then I noticed someone used the commotion to sneak with us past the police. A girl with disheveled, bleached-out hair. Don't worry, she patted the officer on the arm. It was an awful pickup line anyway. He recoiled. You shouldn't touch me, ma'am. What? The fuck? I don't know what's going on here, so I'll just smile and walk away. Pat. Pat is someone new, apparently. Okay, I smiled at her and wanted to say something, but I was interrupted. Pat, Cornell called from the gathering. Would you come here? I need you to show Olga that chart. She sighed, reaching for her backpack and taking out a tablet. And they're at it again, she murmured under her breath and winked at me. Coming. We went toward the activists. As I walked toward Cornell, I heard more and more of the argument. Olga, you can't, Cornell was saying. Pat stood next to him with her tablet. She looked a bit amused. Do not fucking tell me what I can or can't do, Cornell, the woman with dreadlocks interrupted. I can, because they are destroying our mother. I can fight with all the means at my disposal, even if that means burning those harvesters to the ground. I noticed Daniel, standing near her. He took a few steps back, went towards one of the harvesters, turned his back on all of us, and pissed on the machine. Olga smirked. Ah, Daniel, you know how to bring the point home. He looked at her, confused. Cornell raised his eyebrows. Burn the harvesters? Cornell asked calmly. In this drought? Olga, are you out of your mind? You know what I mean. We fight them any way we can because this is a fucking war, she spat. He sighed. You've never seen real war, and it shows. Nobody is shooting at us, and believe me, we want it to stay that way. We need a peaceful protest. I approached Cornell. Hi, we need to talk, I said, approaching Cornell. What a wonderful sense of timing I have. Hello, Maia. Could you wait? I'm right in the middle of something here. In the middle of something? Normally I would wait for them to finish, but it was important. I looked at them. I looked at both of them. Olga with her fury and passion, Cornell with his cool professional demeanor, and shared without any reservations what I felt about the situation. I mean, who are we saying this to? Are we saying this to Olga? Because I'm tending to agree with Cornell here, like, you're not gonna help anything right now by doing that, so... But then again, it's not even my business. Why the hell am I even here? Should I bother taking a side? Although we're trying to butter up Cornell. Okay. Hopefully this does what I says it does. Olga is now cautious, Cornell is now loyal, and Daniel is sympathetic. Okay. Honestly, there's a lot of more solutions than violence, I said in a clear voice, and I think that saving the forest is more important than winning a war, or a dispute. I only inflame the situation. The argument attracted more and more people. Someone old shook their head and moved forward. They had deep wrinkles, a narrow mouth, and the unisex grace of a tired heroin-preserved rock man. They kind of look out of place, I guess. Although I wouldn't know. What does everyone look like? They looked out of place with their shoulder-length disheveled hair, clean-shaven, eyes highlighted with eyeliner. Bright blue nails, heavy army boots, a red skirt, and a tank top completed the look. And pins. Lots of pins. All kinds of the plus flags, anarchist and pacifist symbols, and I think some German band stripes. I observed them curiously. Olga, darling, you know I love you, but Cornell really knows what he's doing. Please, trust me on that one. Kim. Yet another character that just is there. They talked to Olga, but kept glancing at me as if to check how I reacted. Fuck off, Kim. You didn't even trust me enough to come here on your own when I asked you to. There was a woman at Olga's side. Next to Olga, there stood a woman, and she was the most beautiful person I'd ever seen. I couldn't help but overhear because we were all standing together in a circle, and they were talking in a normal voice. I don't know. I couldn't tear my eyes off her. She had a perfect hourglass figure, long braids, and the most stunning cheekbones. Her eyes, slightly slanted, were a weird shade of blue, deep, almost purple. She had a peculiar accent that I will not be trying to imitate. Kim, you want to teach me about violence? She looked them straight in the eye. About fighting oppression? Just because your boss went to what, one mission in Afghanistan? Her Polish was peculiar, kind of mellow. I, as an American student, would definitely be able to tell the nuances of a Polish accent. Cornell winced. Lisa, leave Kim alone. He didn't know what to say, and it seemed that the whole discussion would be derailed. Well, maybe that was for the best right now? Sure. Whatever, break this up. I'm here to talk to this guy. Olga is now unfriendly. Okay, sure, whatever. I let them solve it their way. Which sounds for the best, because what investment do I have in this? I'm just an American tourist who showed up and suddenly, like, what, my opinion matters? What the hell is with the writing in this game? And then Olga punched Cornell firmly in the face, turned around, and walked away. He turned around, holding his jaw, and wincing. And then he started to laugh softly. The conversation was over, at least for the time being. Cornell, together with his cronies, walked toward the reporters while Olga went back to the group of people standing in the shadow of an old oak tree. I looked at the forest. I looked at the puszcza, the clearing full of felled trees was like a gaping, bleeding wound in the chest of a friend. I had to do something. And now I'm angry. I looked at my friend. Which one? I've picked up 3 since I've been here. We have to stop this logging. Yeah, just like Olga said, Anya nodded, excited. What they're doing is unforgivable, and we have to fight. How did you come to that conclusion? I was picking a neutral, if not leaning Cornell, decision. Like, what? Okay, whatever. I looked at one group. I looked at the other. The harvesters were dripping with black oil, and the forest stood tall, serene, and full of golden light. It looked like it would protect itself. And then I looked at the felled trees, dead, limp, hopeless. We're not here for that. We're not here for that. I mean, we're angry, but let's try and make better choices here. Cornell, I need answers. Why the hell am I even here? In the limelight, Cornell owed me some explanations. Hey, wait for me, I shouted and ran after him. Hello, Maia, he said. I see you haven't come alone. He reached out his hand. We acted like... He'd acted like a dick arguing with Olga. Why are we suddenly just... Wow. We were on his side, and suddenly, just because of this, they were given this, whatever. Told him about my dream. I paid attention to my dreams just like you said I should, I told him. And I dreamed about this. I gestured at the felled trees. He leaned toward me and in a hushed voice said, You must tell me about it. His eyes were an uncanny shade of gray. The swelling was almost gone. In his eyes, I guess he's healing, because obviously he's a werewolf. Spoilers. Sure, he looks tough. Damn, you look like a tough guy, I blurted out, impressed. Why would I say that? He was in the bad boy hipster military way. I know, he said without skipping a beat. Cornell looked me in the eyes. I know what you dreamed about. When the forest is under attack, it reaches out and picks someone. This time, it picked you. He seemed to believe it. I looked at him, skeptical, but he seemed to believe it. We have the same goal, he looked back at me. Will you help me? I had no time to answer. But before I could answer, I heard a commotion and turned around. The reporters were coming our way, but their cameras were switched off and pointed at the ground. Why weren't they filming? Analytical. Funny, I thought. They should be taking photos or filming the protest, but I couldn't remember if they were when I arrived at the site. So, asked Cornell. There was a hint of impatience in his voice. The reporter shook his head and grimaced. Sorry, everyone. We can't do anything. We're not allowed to cover what's going on here. What did that mean? Press is cautious. What? I exploded. What do you mean you're not allowed? Who said so? Everybody was looking at me. It felt weird. The reporter shrugged. The people who can send an officer your way, who will kindly ask you to hand over your memory card, or else. Go figure, girl. There was a moment of tense silence, and then it all came together. Suddenly I understood the dream. That was the moment I was destined to intervene. Well, we could still use the reporters. I'm not sure where you're going with this, but, God, this is so awkward. An American girl coming over to stir up the troops. Like, what the fuck? We're not even that inspiring, really. I don't think I want to go that route. We're kind of cunning, and maybe this will get me even more cunning? I don't know what we're going for here. These are very weird options. Let's try and still use the reporters if we can. Maybe as a distraction, I don't know. Keep talking. I looked at the protesters. They didn't have a real plan. But they're also kind of as lost as I am. Let's bring down the rage a little bit, maybe. Because I don't really have a clue what I'm doing here. They knew they wanted to protect the forest, but they didn't have a clue how to do it. I looked around, put my hands in my pockets, and wandered toward the journalists. The cops are scared. We have the upper hand. We know what we stand for. They don't, I continued. They think they're the masters here, but they're just following orders. They're just weak, vulnerable humans. They think their badges and weapons will protect them. Unspectacular as it was, I managed to connect. I acted on it. Does it always look like this? I asked. I mean, is it an everyday situation that you can't report? No, answered one of them. He was tall, in his 30s. There were a few glances toward him, almost a flash of warning, but it was too late. Okay, well, why were they here at all, then, I guess? Press is now unfriendly. Wait, so why are you here at all? I asked, and then it hit me. You were sent here to find some dirt on the activists, to get something that would compromise the protests. They looked at one another, suddenly unsure of what to say. Then I heard shouts as Olga and her protesters clashed with the police, and the cameramen grabbed their gear and ran toward the action. Remember, we want the aggressive ones, shouted one of the reporters. I could see the logo of the national TV station on his camera. Soon we were alone. Fuck, Cornell swore and threw his thermal cup at the ground. It bounced, spilling hot coffee everywhere. Someone grabbed me by my shoulder. I turned around and saw Kim. This is when you exit the scene. They turned me around and gently but firmly pushed me away. We'll be in touch, they whispered. The ugly truth. When I was on the road to the village and nobody could see me, I doubled over and vomited. I always felt violently sick when there was too much to process at once. In the whole commotion, I lost Anya from my sight. I was alone, or so I thought. The press is unfriendly. Well, you had it coming, a voice behind me said, and I jumped. A woman was looking at me. I said nothing. Angry, I straightened up and wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. We walked slowly toward the village. Who is this woman? What do you mean I had it coming? What the fuck does that even mean? A few choice words? Like, I didn't cause the flare-up with Olga. What the hell is going on here? We talked. I learned that she was an independent German reporter who'd come here about a month ago. Her name was Erica. So why are you protesting the logging? She asked after a few minutes of small talk. It was my civic duty. For personal reasons. I came here for personal reasons, and I've dropped right into the middle of some eco-guerrilla campaign, I shrugged. And for many reasons, my interests are aligned with the protesters. I looked at her. Why are you asking? She looked at me with renewed interest. Do you know why they're cutting down the trees? She asked back. Because you do know that logging is done by a government company, the state forests? Why? Why are they doing this? I wasn't sure if I understood. Shouldn't the state forest take care of the forest that was healthy? Erica reached for a notebook. It all started with spruce bark beetles. Erica looked into her notes and started explaining the whole situation. That year the beetles' infestation was of catastrophic proportions, and foresters decided that the only way to stop it and save the rest of the forest was to cut down as many infested trees as fast as possible. And couldn't they just remove the dead trees? Well, I mean... Was the logging legal? Well, I mean, if it's done by the State Forest Service, then yes. That's a perfectly normal explanation for this, actually. Maybe if they removed the dead trees, the infestation wouldn't spread. I tried to find a solution. They might do that, but dead trees are what make the forest unique, Erica smiled. There are 20 times more species living on a dead spruce tree than on an alive one. Okay, well, this is legal then, I'm assuming. Is the logging legal? I wanted to know. Opinions differ, but such massive logging in a UNESCO-listed area might be illegal, Erica answered. So was cutting down the trees necessary? I feel like we're going over something that should have really just been a one-answer storyline here. Is cutting down the trees the only way to stop the infestation? I asked, confused. The foresters state that this is the only way, she said. Some biologists argue they are cutting wrong trees and doing it too late to change anything. Did they have to intervene at all? Couldn't they just leave the pusha alone and let nature take its course? I asked. That's one of the options, Erica admitted. But there's a draft, and no one is sure if the forest would survive on its own. There's a draft? There's a drought? I think it's supposed to be a drought. It was infuriating. Why couldn't she just answer my question? Whose side is she on? You're now hostile with the press. Whose side are you on, anyway? I asked in a loud voice. I'm just doing my job, Erica shrugged. I describe all aspects of the situation to you, but it's up to you to decide what you want to do. Wow. An actual press. No yellow journalism here. Way to go, Erica. How convenient. She was putting herself in such a convenient position. Unfortunately, I couldn't just pretend that it wasn't my business. At least I was sure that they were cutting down the trees, and the Pusha needed my help. Continue on the spiritual route? Why not? I asked her to stop and listen. Stop for a moment and just listen, I asked Erica. We stood there listening to the birds and the wind and the trees. We breathed in the smell of the forest. We felt the sun on our faces. That's why I cannot let them cut down the trees, I said. She looked skeptical. You're not the only one feeling helpless, she sighed. But anger makes you see things in black and white, and the truth is always more nuanced than that. I said nothing. There was so much to process at once, everything that happened at the logging site, the heat, the stench of the harvesters, the tension between Olga and Cornell that you could cut with a knife. It all made my head spin. What's the matter, she asked. I don't know. Just keep with this. I felt so helpless when I saw all that. I took a deep breath, then I remembered what Cornell had said. All the mystical stuff. Sure, let's just tell the reporter all this stuff. This person that we just met 5 minutes ago. They said the forest needs my help. I shook my head. It's a lot to take in, and there was that foul smell back there. She looked at me with a weird expression. What smell? She asked. Smell was not the point. Of all the things I told you, you asked about a smell? I huffed. Trying to understand what's going on here. She looked at me with a strange expression on her face, as though she wanted to say something and then thought better of it. You'll learn in your own time if you stay here long enough, she said, clearly wanting to drop the topic. What do you mean? I just told you, you'll learn in time. Or not at all, which would frankly be better. Anyway, gotta run. As I watched her leave, I thought that whatever connected me to the forest had surely manifested itself that day. I guess I'd made some progress. I guess? I decided to help the forest. I jumped right into the middle of a very tense situation that I had nothing to do with, and I had no reason for anyone to listen to me or even give a shit about me, but whatever. I jumped right into the middle of this situation and at the very least upset the status quo. Just hope I hadn't made things worse. I'm not sure how, though. How the hell did I... I was neutral in their argument. I didn't take a side. And I just had a tense run-in with the press who had nothing... what the fuck? I walked on in silence. Whoever wrote this section didn't do a good job. It's questionable. Very questionable what the hell just happened there. Forced. Let's use that word. That's a better word. Forced. Anya came back soon after me. I lost sight of you, she said apologetically. Glad you made it back in one piece. So how was your day? Anya asked. I met a lot of new people. Met some very interesting people, I said, still excited. Yeah, they looked like a colorful bunch, Anya grinned. Maybe you could introduce me later? Jesus, woman! They sure are passionate. They argue between themselves more than they argue with the loggers, I added. And I guess that's really all I want to share. I don't know. I guess I could say that I had a chat with the reporters. Made a fool of myself, somehow. Had a nice chat with the reporters, I grinned, and I learned a thing or two. Anya frowned. I heard you can't trust them. Never said I did, I winked. That's all I want to talk about. Just another day in this place I've been in for 2 days and know so much about. We went for a while in silence. You know, there's more to see here in Białowieża, Białowieża. I don't know. I actually put this into Google Translate and listened to it once, and of course my fucking brain can't remember. Anya came over, said, oh fuck. Anya said from over her travel guide, Pogozelci, I think it's Tsi. Udi, Termiski, Tsirlonka. There's something interesting in every village. An open-air museum, some kind of folk university, the bison. Maybe you'd like to see something more than logging. I couldn't see everything. It'd be great if I could see everything, but I can't, I shrugged. I want to focus on the logging, even if I'm missing something else. And how's the search for your roots going? Anya couldn't stay silent for long. I shared what I learned, which right now is not much. They say that when the forest is in need, it reaches out to people, I said, and for some reason this time it reached out to me. Wow, Anya looked impressed. Honestly, I'm not sure what to think, but if you need something, just let me know. I am tired. I just sat there looking through the window. The day'd been full on, and I was exhausted. I didn't notice when I fell asleep. I can do anything. It's quiet now, yet I know deep down inside that something isn't right. I'll just keep walking. I'm walking through the forest to the logging site. It's getting dark. The light seeps away as though there are millions of tiny punch holes in the sky through which it can escape, and then the darkness starts to pour in. I know what I'm going to see. And I see bodies strewn across the ground, bloodied, maimed, and their limbs torn from destroyed torsos. I can see some of them are still alive, still struggling for air, still trying to live. They're all trees, fallen trees, still alive, still struggling for air. I'm sure there's stench. I can smell them. The stench is dark, rancid, putrid. There are monsters at the edge of the forest. They have long skeletal arms. They're wrapped in glistening black intestines, and each arm has a wide, gaping mandible full of whirring blades. They snap at me blindly. I can feel the forest by my side. Some of my new friends have horns, some have antlers. Their eyes shine in the dark and they are ready. They are furious. I can feel their ancient anger merge with mine. I howl ancient oaths. I invoke the moon. I spill blood. The spirits of the forest move, and I am with them, biting off heads and tearing off limbs. We are a nightmare come true. Then I wake up. I gasp and bolt upright. I was alone. The sun was setting, and in the deep, red light the room looked like it was bathed in blood. My pillow was on the ground, and the duvet was torn. Tiny feathers were spilling through the tear. What happened? Chapter 3. The Standoff. Okay. Good enough place to end, so I will see you next time.